You are now tuned into the 2-Minute Warning, a live stream community conversation pertaining to social and political issues and how we can collectively resolve them. Powered by the Westside Gazette.
Hi, and welcome to the 2-Minute Warning. I'm your host, Perry Busby, along with my co-hosts, Bobby Henry and David Wright, and we would like to welcome you to the 2-Minute Warning. The 2-Minute Warning is brought to you by the Westside Gazette newspaper, one of South Florida's oldest African-American owned newspapers. And so my brothers, Bobby and David, how are you doing?
Well, you know me, I'm terrific and getting better. What about you, Dave?
I am fantastic, man, and just getting stronger every day.
All right. So what we got going on, Mr. Bud?
Well, it's another week, and glad to have our audience join us again as we continue on in our dialogue for the month. But before we bring our guests on, just wanted to catch up on the news in Broward and in Florida and surrounding areas. So what's going on in Broward?
What we say? SSDD.
Same old stuff.
Different day. Okay. Yeah. Well, I can say the same thing. I'm in Tallahassee, and SSDD here as well.
I see we got Mona Lisa joining us. We haven't seen Mona Lisa in a while. So that's a great thing.
Yeah.
But let's jump on into this. What's going on?
Man, there's so much going on. Where do you want to start? I mean, we're talking about HBCUs. We're talking about our governor. We're talking about just crazy stuff that's happening right here in Broward County.
Well, it seems to me that HBCU and the governor goes hand in hand with what he's trying to do. Perry, you up there?
Not only HBCUs, but in our educational system, especially as it relates to African American history. Our governor seems to be making quite a poignant statement. If you haven't heard, the Department of the Office of Education Articulation. I'd never heard of this department. The Department of Education's Office and Articulation. This department was the department responsible for rejecting the AP, the Advanced Placement course curriculum for African American history. And they said that the curriculum, in their words, is inexplicably contrary to Florida law and significantly lacks educational value.
Hold up. Deacon Wright, help me out.
Oh, I got to pray for you, my brother, because I'm about to say something myself.
Well, come on. What he called? What was that department called?
The Department of Education's Office of Articulation.
And that's some new stuff.
Yeah, this is a department under the Department of Education, and so they're responsible for the curriculum, the high school curriculum, or should I say pre-K through 12 curriculum for Florida schools. And so when it came to advanced placements for college credits, Florida schools will not have an AP placement curriculum as it stands. Now, this curriculum is available, I think, in 45 other states. And so that curriculum will not be available currently within Florida schools.
Okay, Dave. Come on.
Again, this is an attempt, I just feel, to try to dumb down the state of Florida. This is really, in my opinion, it's going to hurt our school system. It's going to hurt the children. It's going to hurt our community relations if we allow this to continue. I do feel that there are going to be some offsets to this, even though this is, if I'm not mistaken, Perry, this is law, correct?
Yes, yes, they rejected it because because it's contrary to stated law.
To the stated law. So here's where it comes back to voting again. To me, this is what happens.
You know, I know I'm not supposed to be anxious for anything, but there are several tentacles that are pulling, and I'm trying to find answers to. When you say the law, from where I stand, the law has here lately not been in our favor. And when I'm saying I'm speaking about black people now. I'm not going to skirt around the issue. You know, I'm speaking about black people. The law has here in the state of Florida, the law has not been in our favor. So I asked the question: where are our leaders? What are they doing to bringing this to a halt, to at least address this? Because I'd be damned if I would sit back and allow any institution not to tell me that I cannot teach my history, especially as it pertains to HBCUs. Now, those other schools, that's something they need to know about us as well. But to have our governor tell us that it's against the law to teach the truth about black folk. Now, y'all stop me before I continue.
Well, I mean, and if we're not going to skirt around the issue, then let's be very straightforward, because our governor has had his hand in a lot of black education issues, especially in Broward as of late. And so my thing is, again, I'm holding, as you say, let's hold our elected officials accountable. If the governor isn't listening to black Democratic elected officials, which I doubt, we do know that there are some Republican officials that he listens to. And while I may not agree in my politics and my policies with that conservative agenda, I'm resolute on our history. And so I hold them just as accountable. Your history, whether you're a conservative, independent, Democrat, or whatever, should not be whitewashed by somebody who can't even tell you the very basics of your history. In fact, if they want to reject this, I say let's take a test up to the Department of Education. Let them pass a basic African American history test. How are you going to reject something when I don't even know if you had the qualifications to even know the history that you saying is in violation to this law?
Because he is not concerned about that. You know, and that's what we're being confronted with. I don't understand. Well, I do understand, but I'm not accepting it. And Mona Lisa, the question you asked, what does holding elected officials accountable look like? It looks like snatching their behind out of office if they're not doing what they're supposed to do. That's what it looks like, you know. But I don't want to.
And then find out the base. We're actually the base, but what are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
And part of that is calling and talking to our elected officials, rallying the troops, rallying folks that are concerned about this, our educational leaders in the state, so that we can come to some kind of conclusion or structure or plan as to how do we address this.
Yeah, what happens?
Well, let's say this publicly. Can we, in the month of February, get a cross-section of our black leaders, Republican and Democrat, to come speak on this issue? Come speak to the people on this issue. I mean, if we gonna have this talk and be at the table, come talk to us. Tell us. If you disagree, I'm okay. Just be honest in your disagreement. That's what holding our elected officials accountable means to me. Come tell me where you stand to my face.
Okay. What in the terms is direct action? What happens if our direct action to what this governor is trying to do, we keep our children out of school? Huh? We keep them homeschooled. You know, we begin to take care of our own. What happens then? Direct actions.
There've been plenty of direct actions. I've been on buses to Tallahassee before, so we've had many areas where we can do direct action, and it's usually our bus drivers that initiate it. Mm-hmm. So if it means holding kids out of school, if it means some kind of form of protest, you know, we need to consider how important this is to us.
Yeah. You know, we're back to that. My philosophy is don't get on the bus. Don't get on the bus that's teaching lies and perpetrating fraud and trying to discredit the true history or history of people. Don't get on that bus. Don't get on the bus of stupidity. Don't get on the bus of racism. You know, so if we take that attitude, that mantra that was done for 13 months of not getting on the bus that brought Alabama to her knees. You know, it's time for us to quit playing around and be serious about the business of taking care of our own. So
yeah. And I wish we could go on to the other topic, but I see we're running for time. The other topic had to do with Bethune-Cookman head coach Ed Reed talking about the lack of accountability among Black leaders at some of our Black institutions. And he was very critical, as had Deion Sanders. And, you know, and the response has been across the board, both for and against. But I think what we need to understand, especially as it relates to sports, that if our schools are going to be committed and want to achieve at some level, then there's some amount of accountability, funding, and resources that are just a part of it. And so we, you know, again, that we can have that discussion later, but I thought it was very important as it relates now to Black athletes and HBCUs and this whole sport dilemma.
You know, it bleeds over the pressure, the disrespect, the unwillingness to be a part of the success of a people. It bleeds over. It bleeds over into brothers like Ed Reeves and his comments. He hurts so bad, you know, that it comes out, you know, vile and it just bleeds over.
Yeah. And you know, in most cases when it comes to truth has never really been sweet. But you know, that's another story. Truth is as raw as it can get. But anyway, and speaking of truth, we have to let's pivot into our conversation for the month, which has been on human trafficking awareness, which is a growing problem in our community and across every community. And I am so honored to have tonight two guests who have been in the trenches and whose work spans dimensions and spans different horizons. And so our first guest tonight, I'm so honored to have her because I am a big fan of her writing. And our guest is Miss Pamela Samuels Young. Miss Young is, when I first got to know Pam, I knew she was an attorney and also a novelist, and was just trying to figure out how do you balance, you know, those two careers. And reached out to her, and she gave me some really good advice. But not only has she succeeded in writing, she is well renowned, and that comes with much acclaim. She is the 2014 NAACP Image Award winner for outstanding fiction for her novel Anybody's Daughter, which the book provides an eye-opening look into the world of child and sex trafficking. And her latest thriller, Failure to Protect, takes on the bullying epidemic and its devastating aftermath. She is well credentialed. She comes from the mighty USC Trojans and also a graduate of the UC Berkeley Law School. And she is a native of Compton, so you better not come with no little janky stuff on us. Without further ado, let me introduce Miss Pamela Samuels Young.
Thank you, thank you. And my parents, growing up in the city of Compton, where my parents still live today, in the same house they bought the year I was born. So I am a proud Compton native and product of the Compton school system. So
great. And so tell us a little bit more about yourself, about your book, before we.
When I wrote the book, Anybody's Daughter, I think I had the idea. It was published in 2013. I had the idea for it in 2012. After talking to a friend, it's rare that I've written over a dozen books, and only a couple of them I can remember the precise moment I realized I was going to write a book about this topic. I was having lunch with a friend who said that girls were being trafficked in the United States by gangs. I was like, what? What do you? I mean, because for me at that time, 2012, trafficking was something that happened to girls in Russia, the Philippines. They didn't happen here. And I went home and I Googled child sex trafficking, and I was stunned at everything I saw. And I was like, why isn't anybody talking about this? And that came up with the idea for a novel where a young girl is trafficked, who grew up in Compton, who is trafficked, and it's her uncle, who's a former drug dealer, who is not relying on the police. He's relying on his wit to get her back home. And during the process, I wanted you to understand how these girls are trafficked and what happens. And that's how the story came together. And the biggest compliment that I got for that book was not the Image Award. It was when I donated some books to a woman who helps girls who survived. And she gave them the book to read. And she said a couple of them came back to her and said, where was I trafficked? Because they thought I couldn't have written that story without having been trafficked myself. That told me that I hit the nail on the head.
Okay. Okay. All right. So, I want to bring on our next guest too, so we can engage in this conversation. Okay. Our next guest is no stranger to the show, Miss Lynn Butler Shaw. She is a. I don't want to say this, Lynn. You know, you were involved in several training situations. You own your own training company. You have over 25 years of experience in law enforcement training. You were at one time rated as the #1 bounty hunter in the country. You know, you were on our show before. You had some experiences that allows you to have firsthand information about the topic and in rescuing some victims from the topic. So I won't belabor this. I'll bring on Miss Lynette Butler Shaw. Or is that Shaw Butler? I say it backwards all the time. Hello, Lynette. You muted. You muted, Lynette.
I said you can just say Shaw. That's okay. That's good. Okay. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be on tonight. And yes, I have that experience. I have my own adverse childhood experience, which I know you've heard before, but it's significant in that many sex traffic and human traffic involved rape and abuse and all that. And at the age of 7 years old, I was dragged into a building and raped by 6 white boys. And I got out of that, never told anybody. went home and became an angry little light-skinned Black child. And, my story begins there. When, just fast forward, when I started my business, the very first school where I was abducted from, I went there and trained 800 teachers, principals, and anybody that was, dealing with children, coaches, trained them to recognize signs of trauma. And it's not just Black kids, Black and brown kids that have behavior problems. There's other issues attached to it that we don't generally see. And if we're trying to teach, and that's just our main thing in our communities, there's so much more than that to look at. And we need to do that. And I think this sex trafficking and human trafficking topic, it has a whole lot to do with what it is that we're dealing with in our communities as far as trauma and what's happening in the home and how we become vulnerable.
Okay.
So, Pamela, we want to go back to you and also just get some feedback now on some of the other things that you've done in reference to this area of human trafficking. Just kind of continue to fill us in on some of the other projects that you've been a part of.
And when I wrote that book on child sex trafficking, I never thought I would end up being an advocate. And it was so heartwarming to me the way the book resonated with people. I do speak a lot on it and have met many survivors who are the most resilient young people that I've ever met. I remember I attended a retreat where girls who had been rescued from trafficking were brought in the mountains. And I'll never forget a young Latina girl who had pimp told her, she came back, she was sent to be with the John, but the John left without the money, without paying her. And when she got back, the pimp beat her up and had his other girls beat her up. And I'm looking at this little girl and looking at her today, and they are so resilient. And I think it's important because I speak to a lot of parents, and people always think, oh, those poor little girls, this can't happen to my girls, my children. It can happen to your children. And I tell parents, if your child has a cell phone, the trafficker has access to your child in your house. This is not the days when they hung out at the park and waited by the school. They are online. So if you don't know what your kids are doing on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, you should learn. There's no way I'd have a young kid today where I would not have a tracker on their phone to know what they're doing, because it's dangerous and they don't have the maturity to appreciate the danger. I didn't appreciate it. Thank God I didn't have cell phones when I was growing up. God knows what I would have been doing. Mm-hmm. So I like to remind parents that it can happen to you. And I'll share a story later about a friend that, one of my closest friends, who had a member of her family who met with somebody foul play online.
Okay. Lynette, your business, how can people, how do you reach people who you feel, or there's something that's happening that draws you to them? How do you get them to come out and talk about that? How do you help them?
Well, honestly, that's one of the gifts that I have. When I go into youth, centers, and when they're the youth centers, the teen centers, and organizations that bring in our children for, like, say, a YMCA or YWCA. Those organizations where our communities utilize, they have programs, and so I'm brought in normally with a grant. And when I go in there, I have unique training modules that are kind of they're shaped for us, meaning meeting our children where they are. And because I have been victimized, it's almost radar, that those kids that are, are withdrawn, the kids that they don't want to talk, or they're mean, or they start, they don't want to talk to you at all. Those are the children that they're attracted to me, number one. And because I don't treat them, or I don't give them the same answers as somebody, you need to respect, I'm not trying to be somebody that's trying to put them in their place. What I do know is that when there are issues like that there's some serious underlying trauma that has happened to that young person. And oftentimes we think who we are, it's all about us and how somebody needs to respect us. But those young people need you to see them. And oftentimes we don't. How do I get to them? I see them. I listen to them. It's so important. Even the worst things that they might say to you, I've been called this bitch, this and that. And by the time it's all over with, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just didn't, they say to me, because look, I'm ex-law enforcement in our community, right? And the first thing they do is like, But when they hear my story, when they hear what I have been through and how I navigated life, it gives them hope that they can too. Wow, this is somebody that got out of it. Now, let me say that this was not human trafficking or anything. This was an abduction from school. But there's a lot of risk factors. And I don't know if you know this statistic, but 50% of all juvenile sex trafficking are Black youth. 50%. And that's the National Education Association. Go check that out. But 50% of all juvenile sex trafficking, Black youth represent that 50%.
Okay.
That's
we have a question in the chat, but I just wanted to kind of piggyback on that with you also, Lynette. Are there any signs? This is from Rachel Johnson is asking, and I'm sure she's asking maybe both prior to and maybe after the acting out, but how do we know when our kids are being stalked, I guess, through their phones or targeted through their phones, and what happens after something happens?
Well, here's some signs, okay? Some red flags for any and everybody to look out for, right? So when a person or a young person seems overly fearful and submissive, tense, or paranoid, and then when you're asking them questions, that they defer to another person before answering the questions, right? Physical injuries. Sometimes it's branding tattoos that whoever has them, there's some kind of tattoo on them that represents that. Wearing clothing that's not appropriate, that it's more sexually, clothes that are revealing and like that. Their ID and that kind of stuff held by somebody else. They don't have their own license. Somebody else is holding it. Multiple phones, right? And multiple social media accounts. And then big, unusual wealth, right? They have money. You don't know where it came from. Where'd you get that money? There could be something. These are red flags. And again, risk factors. Children and young adults, they're all susceptible, but there are people that are more at risk. And they are the youth that are homeless students, okay? LGBTQ plus, right? Youth. And then this is big. Children with a history of family instability, physical or sexual abuse, and then throw in their poverty. All big risk factors.
You know, and that brings me back to you, Pamela. And your short story, I was so enthralled in that, to the point where I could smell what she was smelling when her head was in the lap of that guy. I could feel her being drugged, you know, and the white girl who was in the room with her, who was branded, by the way, Lynette, she had a brand on her, you know. So these things are real. So Pamela, my question to you is, okay, this is the trauma and the what do you call it in the book? The characters in your book. Have you met those persons? What does that do to you? How do you use your writing to be a proponent, a soldier in this war?
You know, oddly enough, I didn't meet anybody who had actually been trafficked until after I wrote the book. But I did a lot of research. I read a lot of testimonies and stories about girls who've been trafficked. And I always say, God, just put that story in me. And then when I started speaking, I got to meet so many young girls. I mean, and people don't understand how simple it is for a guy to win that girl's trust. I remember speaking with this beautiful girl. She was speaking too. She was a survivor, and she's beautiful, dark-skinned girl, but didn't think of herself as beautiful. And here's how easy it was for that trafficker to get in her head. She is walking home from school alone. He pulls over to the curb and tells her she's beautiful. She had never been told she was beautiful before. Then all of a sudden, I'm your boyfriend. Now don't tell anybody, because I'm 30 years old. So don't tell anybody I'm your boyfriend. And I'm gonna get your nails done. I'm gonna get your hair done. I'm gonna, like Lynette said, money that they shouldn't have, being secretive. And it's just that simple. And the next thing you know, they're saying, well, you know, I did all this for you. Why don't you sleep with my friend? I need some money. I did all this for you. It's just that simple. And you got to realize that we're talking about children who don't have the maturity to understand. I'm 60. I'll be 65 in 2 months, and I still taking the okie doke from men. I was a 16-year-old dude, girl, gonna understand that this man who says she's loved and who's never felt love. And when I speak to parents, they say, well, the most important thing you can raise your daughter with is self-esteem. So the first time a guy says you're beautiful or she loves you, well, my mama, okay, I know my mom and daddy tell me that every day. Because a little girl who's never heard that is going to gravitate toward that guy who tells her that. And it's just that easy. Let me, I would love to use this time right now to show you a video that, and I remember I was speaking to doctors on trafficking about recognizing the signs. Some of the things that Lynette had said, I mean, when they're coming in, they were talking about more physical signs. But when they finished watching this video, I could tell from the looks on their faces that their fear was, oh my God, I'm not looking out for my own child. So do we have the video handy that we can run right now? I think our technical person is hopefully
okay. Yeah, it said 3 minutes. And I'll wait while they're doing it. Maybe we can answer this question on the other side. When we address this, we usually look at this from the side of those who have been victimized, and rightfully so. But the other side to that is that this is a growing trend because there is a growing demand. This is supply and demand in its rawest form. How do we begin to address some of those demand issues? Again, human trafficking, as we say, takes on many colors. Some we're talking sex, but a lot of it is labor. See, and that labor is sex as well, you know. So
I don't think we will stop it until we start zeroing in on the Johns. We have to cut the demand. These girls will tell you, My customers are lawyers, doctors, judges, cops. So in California we have John schools. You know what a John school is? That if you're arrested for soliciting prostitution, you can go to a class on weekends and it'll be erased like drunk driving. Now John schools, you can't do John schools if you've been caught with a minor, okay? But still, to have a John school, and now the proponents of it will tell you that the recidivism rate of the guys who go to John school is lower because they will bring in a girl who's been trafficked and they will tell that story. And it reaches many of the girls, many of the guys, but you have to stop the demand for it. And if you're not going to arrest these guys, remember that show To Catch a Predator? They were arresting rabbis, ministers, police cops, and some of them would be back out a week later in a show.
Yeah, that's the problem. It is that there's laws, the laws that are put out there. It basically the same way they don't care about certain ethnicities and our, we're getting stiffer sentences, right? It's the same thing with the laws for women, right? They don't care. So here's a little charge that's you're going to be able to arrest them, but they're going to get community service. They're going to, it's not stringent enough. That is not a deterrent, not at all.
Okay, we got the video ready, and we're going to come back and talk about the psychological makeup of the Johns.
And when you watch this video, think about the kids in your life.
Now, this is the 3-minute one or the 7-minute one?
This is the 7-minute one. We can cut out early if we need to, but you'll understand what I mean when you see it, because we don't think about it in this regard.
What's up, guys? I'm Kobe Person. How easy is it for a pedophile to pick up an underage child using social media? Well, today we're gonna find that out. I made a fake profile on Facebook posing as a 15-year-old boy. With the parents' permission, I friend requested 3 girls ages 14, 13, and 12 years old. I've been talking to these girls for the last 3 or 4 days, and today we're supposed to meet up. What we found in this video is shocking and something everyone should see. Be sure to watch until the end and use what we've learned in this video to better educate your friends and family. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. This first girl, her name is Michaela. She's 13 years old. We've been talking on Facebook for the last couple of days, and we're supposed to meet up at the park later when her parents leave the house. I'm just waiting right now to get the text that her parents have left the house. So I just got a text. My parents just left. I can be at the park in 10 minutes. We're gonna go see if she comes in 10 minutes. We're gonna go right now, set up all the cameras, and just be waiting there for her. So she said she's gonna meet me at the park playground. So this is the closest to her house, she said. So right now I'm texting her that I just got here. All right, we'll just wait, see what she says. She said, okay, I'll be there in 5 minutes. Oh, she's coming, yeah. Michaela?
Where are you?
From Facebook. Remember?
Michaela! Are you crazy? Are you out of your mind?
Sorry.
He could have been a rapist. He could have been a pedophile. Why would you do this?
Sorry.
Yeah, you know that I could have been anyone. Like you talked to me for the last 4 days. You've been talking to me on Facebook. Do you know that? Like, you shouldn't talk to strangers, especially online. Like, I wasn't even do I look the same as my picture? It could be even worse than that.
You realize how scary this could have been? Come here. We have to talk.
This next girl, her name is Juliana. She's 12 years old, and we're supposed to meet up tonight when her father falls asleep. So right now I'm here with John, who's Juliana's father. We're gonna see if she's actually gonna come to the door or not. She said, this was the last text, LOL, I would have to wait till my dad falls asleep if you want to chill, because I can't have boys over. So she wants to chill tonight, supposedly. What do you think about that?
I don't think she's gonna open the door. Gotta hope she doesn't open that door.
What's your address?
I pray she does not respond to this.
Well, I can't say the address, but she just literally just texted the address. Start driving to the address close by. My dad's going to drop me off. All right, so she just said, I think my dad fell asleep. You can come now. The one with the light right here?
Yes.
Come outside. Come to the front door. Are you ready? Sleep shield.
Juliana, get over here. Get over here. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you?
I'm sorry.
How can you do this? You're 12 years old. This guy's 20 years old. You could have been raped and murdered. We already lost your mother. What would I do if anything happened to you? What would I do if anything happened to you? I love you. Don't you ever do this again. Don't you ever do anything.
Okay, that is happening. If your child has a cell phone, predators have access to your child in your house, and I think people need to understand that, and it's real. And it's not real because people think, oh, it's just happening to these kids out here that are from on foster care or in poor families. No, it's happening. It's happening on a broader scale, and social media is fueling it.
Wow. I was, and I'll direct this to you, Lynn. In your classes, your sessions, has there been a mental profile or to give us an idea what that John or that trafficker looks like?
Look, there's no description. It could be anybody from any ethnicity. It can be a family friend. People in the neighborhood that know your kids all their lives. There's not any real profile. It's dangerous out here, and I'll tell you, it usually is someone that is charismatic, that knows that young person. And again, the same as Pamela said, that's self-esteem. And a lot of our young people don't have self-esteem. They have not been taught or told that they're beautiful or paid attention to, because many of our families are single home families, and their parents go to work. So they're, and I'm not saying that it just happens in single home families. I'm saying it could happen in any family, intact families, because it's always something that a young person could be dealing with, especially just regular teen years. They can be dealing with something that they're not going to talk to their parents about. And so they feel more comfortable trusting in somebody outside. And there are many, many predators out there that will lend an ear with no problem to our children. And that's why they need to be educated and informed. Not only the young people, but the parents need to be educated and informed about human trafficking, signs, symptoms, and who's vulnerable, the most vulnerable.
And that education point that you just mentioned is so important. Teach. We don't want to talk about it, or we don't want our kids. We deal with them in such a fragile way that we harm them. My girlfriend, who happens to be a vice cop, and thank God she talked to her daughter. She drops her daughter off for her first year at Spelman College in Atlanta. A week later, she gets a call from her daughter. It's like, "Hey, Mom, we were approached by traffickers yesterday." Guy rolls up to Spelman looking for that naive young girl. But my friend educated her daughter, so she knew what to look for. She knew what the game was. Girls are trafficked in college.
Yes.
I've met some. I know one young woman who raised in a very religious home, couldn't date, couldn't watch certain things on TV. So she gets to college, she meets her first boyfriend. The same old thing. He loves her, buys her this, that, and a month later, well, why don't you make me some money for me? I did all this for you. So here's a girl who's trafficked in college. And also, before I forget, it's so important. We talk about child sex trafficking, and there are so many resources for girls who are under 18. But we gotta remember those young women who are out there, who are adults, because many of them were abused. They say over 90% were abused, and that's a factor in them being out there. No, they didn't. And the ones who are out there now, they didn't start at 18. The majority of them started as teens. They were runaways. They were leaving abusive situations. Yeah. So don't. I've seen a sea change where the way law enforcement treats children. When I first started writing this book, they would arrest a 14-year-old. Now that 14-year-old is a victim, but that 18-year-old isn't treated the same way. Yeah. So we gotta have some compassion for the adult women who are out there, because it's a psychological, their trauma. There's all kind of things that lead them to be out there walking the streets.
I totally agree with you, Pamela, because if a young person was traumatized, and it depends what age, right? They stop at that age. Say you're traumatized at 10, right? They are not developing in certain areas in their brain. They're still going to think emotionally. They are still that 10-year-old at 20 some years old. And that's what many people don't understand and know. And so they don't have the capacity to know that that person isn't for them, or that, it's a manipulative situation, because they're used to being manipulated, or not acknowledged for the things that have happened to them, especially in our culture. What goes on at home stays at home. A lot of times it's family trauma. Uncle so-and-so touched them. And now, there's no connection with really family, because it's a family issue that has not been resolved. And so they take that into college. And in particular, those who have been in church, preachers' kids, those who have been stopped from dating and discipline and all that. Those are the ones who get to college. And I know this because I worked at a university as a police officer. And those are the young people. And I ran groups with those young people. Those are the young people that are vulnerable. And they wild out when they get to college, because they have not been able to do that in any other place. And those are the ones that get the STDs, that sleep with multiple guys in the first year. It's really sad. We don't understand what we're doing to our children. When we try to restrict everything. Discipline is not always good for our children. We need to have a little bit more openness and understanding.
And I want to add just one more real quickly about that. When I finish Anybody's Daughter, people keep saying, "Are you going to write a sequel?" And I hadn't had that in mind. But then I thought maybe a sequel where I can talk about this from the pimp's perspective, because these guys have daughters and mothers and sisters. And first, I put feelers out in the community, and no guy would agree to talk to me. Would agree to an interview. Then finally, a guy agreed to an interview, but by phone and anonymously. He was 25 years old, a 2-parent home, and he was very unemotional about it. It's like, it's just a business. Mark he said, "You'll never stop it." He said, "My clients come to see my girls before work and after work to do what their wives won't do." And he said, "And once I have their heads, it's going to be hard for you to get them back." And obviously, after that, I was so done out after that conversation. I decided I couldn't write a book about that, because it was just too. But you have to understand how manipulative these guys are. And just please, if you're watching this, don't think your children are not at risk.
Okay. I want to bring up a comment from one of my viewers. And I'm trying to read the name. Is that MARINEKJB?
That's somebody's.
Okay. And that person said that at home, it took me, there we go. It took me a long time to learn that I was stuck in the time because of the trauma I experienced. Can we put up some help information for this person if they would like to? And if anybody want to comment on the show, you don't have to. We don't have to see your face. We don't have to. Okay, there's it. We want to help. We want to extend some help. And Lynette, what I was talking about earlier, I was, as you hit on what a victim experiences and where their mind stop at that particular point. I was trying to, but you said there was no profile that we could use, not a physical profile, but a mental profile of a human trafficker. Did I make up a word?
Very manipulative, narcissistic. Oftentimes, they don't have an emotional capacity to feel for what they're doing. They don't care about anyone, and it could be on the other end that in their lives, their mothers were not, were not good to them, or they were abused by mothers. Oftentimes. But they're manipulators. They are the ones with the big smiles and the swag, and they know what to say to young people. And so, and they don't have any, the same as Pamela said, that there's no remorse. It's all about money. And they can get, regular guys who want to sleep with women, they get them here first, right? But when you get a predator that is doing that, it's the very same thing as a young person trying to get some, young girl in bed, like regular, right? Well, a predator in the hands of a predator, it has the same effect, and they will do anything. And then it's just like the girl that keeps going back when she's not treated right, when she's not treated with respect, when she starts to get hit, when she starts to be dependent on whatever, and has to answer and do what the guy says because she loves him. They don't know what love is, and they have never been shown that many times in their families. When I got divorced, there was a reason why I did that, because I realized that we are showing, as husband and wife, right, partners, we are showing our young people what love is. We're showing them how to love. We are showing them what it should look like. And if that isn't healthy, then our kids are vulnerable.
Yeah. And I know we're getting close to our time, and just one last question. And I want to point it back to something that we can do. And Pam, you said something about the pimp, and again, going back to what we're fighting against. I mean, we're also fighting against a pharmaceutical industry that is pumping all kinds of drugs into guys to stay virile and that. So again, you can't avoid that dot from this argument as well. I mean, we are living in a society that is, as they say, equally sex obsessed as it is sexually repressed in many ways. And so looking at this, and I mean, again, we all acknowledge this is happening in our communities. This is nothing new, but at the rate at which is happening, and we're all doing something, as our guest has told us. I mean, from this show to all of the work that Pam you're doing, Lynn you're doing, there's still some gaps. What are some of the gaps that you see that if we could just do something?
Well, let me do something. And Ari, if Ari can pull up that slide about loitering, the loitering law in California. This is shocking because I just found out about this 2 weeks ago. Before January 1 of this year, there was a law in California that says if you're loitering for the purpose of prostitution, the police can arrest you. On January 1st of 2023, the California governor repealed that statute. So you can now loiter. You cannot be arrested for loitering for the purpose of engaging in prostitution. Now, we can go back to, you can take the screen down now. Okay, you're thinking, okay, why would anybody ban that? Well, there's a group of state senators in California who said, well, the police are harassing members of the transgender community and mostly Black and brown girls because they're out on the streets at night. I think it's a false flag. I think it's we're seeing many states trying to move toward the legalization of prostitution, and laws like this are a step in that direction. So now the pimp can park on the street in California on the track where the girls walk. He can't, and the police can't harass him because you can't arrest somebody for, it was a misdemeanor, but now it's legal. So if I grew up in Compton, I know where the track is in Compton on Long Beach Boulevard. So those girls can walk up and down that track all night, and unless police see them in the act. And the allegation was, for people on the other side, is that, well, they're on this particular track, they're harassing transgender people. Now, the track that they pointed to, there are no transgender people. That's not a transgender track. It's mostly Black and brown girls. And I don't know. It just blew my mind that this law would be legalized because they're saying, well, the transgender people and the Black and brown girls are being disproportionately harassed by police. So I'm not saying all police are angels. We all know that. But so you're going to tie their hands. And so the pimps now are emboldened. They can park. They know they can't be told to move along. And it is shocking that law became effective this month in the state of California.
It's disgusting. And like any of those other laws, it's that they don't care about us, number one. Number two, this is all about money, because processing people going through the legal system, it costs money. And this is all about money and what they don't think is worthy enough, right, to spend on. It is worth it to get them off the street. And also what is it? Mostly women. Mostly women. And we keep going back to that. Mostly women. We're disposable. Even the laws affecting rape. People do egregious crimes of rape and they're out in 4 years. Why? Just to do it again. Exactly. But for drugs, you got dudes doing 10, 20 to life for having an amount of drugs. Why don't we matter? Why don't we matter? That's a big question. Black and brown girls, why don't we matter?
Exactly. And I have just 2 points that I want to make, and then I'm going to hush. One is I want people to remember there's no such thing as a child prostitute. They are sexually exploited children. Okay? They are sexually exploited children. And if you have a child in your life, male or female, there's a Netflix documentary I'd like you to watch. It's called Hot Girls Wanted. And there are 2 of them, but this is the first one. Make sure you look for this screen. It's how this guy, the guy in the middle, how he at this time he was scanning social media to find girls that he was bringing into quote unquote porn industry. Okay. Now you can come back to me on the screen. Okay. Hot Girls Want It. Make sure you watch that first one because it's earth shattering. I have a personal connection to that documentary because a girlfriend of mine, one of my closest friends, calls me and said, I think my niece has been trafficked. What do I do? I put her in touch with a anti-trafficking advocate who went on this girl's Facebook page and within 5 minutes realized she was talking to this guy who was on the police's radar. He's still he's operating because he is not prostituting girls that they can catch, but he is putting them in the porn industry. He is doing porn videos and webcams and those kind of things. Now, what's my personal connection? This guy was scanning social media sites for somebody who's sad and complaining, or I hate my mom, or I'm mad at my dad, and started communicating with him. When my friend's niece went missing, they found out he had sent her a ticket, and she got on the plane at LAX and flew to Miami, where she lived with this guy. Now, my friend has some very high-powered connections who calls anyway, she got the FBI to go to the house, knock on the door. They say, is she here? She comes to the door and basically says, I'm here. I know what I'm. Now, the issue here, she was 18 years old. Had she been 17 years old and 10 months, she would have been a minor who they could have snatched out of there. But she was like, and the FBI agent said, can you walk down the street driveway so I make sure that because he answered the door and said, oh yeah, talk to her right now. She has not returned home since that. And we know for a fact that she's in the porn industry because I've seen pictures of her. But this was the typical girl, beautiful young girl, no self-esteem issues. I mean, self-esteem issues.
Underlying.
Who got lured away by this guy. Please, please, please watch that documentary. Hot Girls Want It. Again, the first one about how he manipulates these girls. And he is still, as far as I know, still operating today. So
they know the law.
They know the law. And don't think it can't happen to your child. Yeah. Because it can. And if you had told me, I know this young woman, if it told me it could happen, I was stunned.
Yeah. As a matter, and to relate to that, and I'll bring the numbers on next week. I've been doing investigations on some of these sites in terms of their users, and they all provide you with the numbers. The numbers to sites such as Pornhub, OnlyFans, Chatterbait saw over 3,000% rise before COVID and what's now as a result of COVID. I mean, in post-COVID, they've seen a 3,000% in accounts. And we're not just talking models, there's users, and that's what I'm saying. There is an equal amount of issue, on both sides of this.
And COVID and stress and all of the social things that are happening right now, inflation, issues with husband and wife at home, all of those things that are not being addressed, mental health issues, right? They are issues that are related to our stress and how we're dealing with things mentally, and we're not coping. And so what they're doing is using that vehicle. Now, other people will use drugs, but again, porn, right? And prostitution, all those things are distractions from what I'm really supposed to be dealing with that's going on inside here.
That's a good segue, Lynette. Okay. While Lynette begins to talk, Pam, can you put up your information for folk to contact you? And Lynette, you got something going on here as it pertains to mental health. You want to give us a little shot on that?
Absolutely. So the For a Better Day Foundation, which is a 5013 nonprofit that works in the Broward, Palm Beach County area, we are doing an event for families with young people that struggle with mental health issues and trauma. We're trying to tackle adverse childhood experiences so we can get these families the help that they need for the young people. Because the real truth is, nobody's knocking on their doors to say, there's therapy for your young person. And if we can get them before all this stuff happens, it's going to be a good thing if we can educate them. So this event is going to be on February 25th. Leslie Bravo is the organizer of this event, and she is really passionate about going into underserved communities and getting the folks that need help the help that they need. This event is going to be a really fun event, informative event for these families, and they're being sponsored. And so we're getting as many families from underserved communities that we can, so we can educate them about resources that are available to their families. Whatever it is that they need, we're going to have it there at the Hard Rock Cafe, Hard Rock Hotel and Casino, in Hollywood, Florida on February 25th. And we're trying to get more families. We have a great deal of families, but the more the merrier. We want to educate, we want to uplift. And the name of the event is Believe for a Better Day, that we can all do something and have a hand in helping our families to navigate issues of trauma and adverse childhood experiences.
Okay, you want to put a phone number up? Hey, Leslie Bravo, can you put a phone number up in there?
I can. Can Leslie do that on there, since I know she came up on the screen. If she can.
Oh yeah, she can put something. Yeah, she can put it in.
Leslie, if you're out there, can you put up a number or somewhere that they can contact us?
Okay.
And if you want to reach me, you can just reach me at my website, PamelaSamuelsYoung.com.
Okay. Pamela, again, your books, I do, like Perry, we like to read, and how can our viewers and our listeners get in contact or purchase those books? How can they do that?
They're on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. If they're not on the shelf at Barnes and Noble, you can order it. They're on Amazon. They're available in print, ebook, and audiobook. I had a fantastic audiobook actor who read the story, did a great job on the characters. And here's the cover of it. There's also a young adult version for kids, I don't know, maybe 13 and up. So it's important that we talk to our kids about this, because they're on the front lines, they're seeing it, and they have to know how to recognize it. In January 2018, California enacted a law that you have to cover sex trafficking in schools, in middle school and up. But they still want to, gently talk about it. It's not, you have to, these kids know more than I ever knew as a 13-year-old, because they have one of these little phones and everything. So we have to stop being so squeamish, because these predators aren't squeamish. They're going after our children. So we have to be honest and open and not afraid to educate.
Yeah, and the other thing is that our young people, they learn. There's a number right there for how you can contact for the for a Better Day Foundation, and our children learn differently, and you have to present it to them in a way that culturally they get it. You can't just say it like, this is a really dangerous thing or whatever. Them kids are gonna be like. Whatever. They're not even. You have to talk to them in a way and let them know how it impacts them and how easily they can be lured in.
Yeah. Bobby, if I may, and it's in the spirit of the 2-minute warning. I'm a black actor, and a black author, and I believe in supporting black authors. Pam, do you have 2 books you can sign?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Bobby, can we give away 2 books?
I don't see why not, man. I think that's a good idea.
2. We don't have any special way, but if 2 readers want it, Bobby, let's have them pick it up from the office or whatever. And Pam, we're gonna sow a seed into you and buy some books. So I know you're always looking for readers.
Let me know. 5 is my lucky number. I'm gonna throw in an extra 3. So let's do 5.
Okay. Come on now, do 5. So if our viewers and listeners, the first 5 that come out of office to get the book, you got it. An autographed book. Now trust me, when I read the excerpt, am I saying the word right? I can mess up.
Excerpt.
I read part of that book. I'm telling y'all, I was right.
It's a great book.
Right there in it. From the time that he put that filthy rag over her head and she fell out to coming. I mean, and her uncle, his love life. I mean, it's a great book. Her writing.
That's it.
Yeah. And Lynette,
it was very, like I said, it was worthy of winning the NAACP Image Award, and that was some tough competition that year. But that's a great book.
Thank you.
And Lynette, what you're doing at the Hard Rock Cafe, Betty Lumpkins, okay, Miriam McCleary, those who are who are viewing right now, Mona Lisa. It's an event that the children need to be a part of this, and it don't cost you nothing.
Nope. It's not going to cost the families anything. And we have sponsors and other people that are donating to the event. All of those monies are going to go back into the community to educate right where they are, because that's what's happening. There's grants all over the place, but these organizations are not investing in our young people with regard to their mental health. If you have this, you have everything. And we need to educate our young people and be able to get them the kind of help that they need so that they can be young adults that can reach back and help others. If we don't help our own, we're not going to be helped. And that's, evident in the way the laws are going and everything and what we talked about. If we don't help ourselves and we don't empower our young people to help others as well, we're going to be lost. That's all we have is our young people, and they're vibrant and beautiful young people that they don't even know it. They don't even know it. And if we don't tell them that, if we don't show them that, if we don't teach them how to fish, we're going to be lost.
Yeah. Absolutely. And Annette, just for clarity, this event is open to the public, correct? No registrations or anything?
It is not open to the public. It is open to those families. The public can come, and those tickets are $250. It's $250 to get there, because that money is going to go toward our families. So those who have it, those who are interested, and also we're looking for resources that want to come in and advertise their business that are helping underserved people in the community. They can come there and have a table and be able to, show what they have to help those families. We are really, we have a lot of people that have money, that love our communities and that are helping. And so they have sponsored a lot of these families to come. So that's why it is free for them. The event is not open to the public. If the public wants to come and bring something to be able to help a family, come on.
Okay, great.
Hey, Dr. Hill, are you still out there, Dr. Hill? Here's an opportunity. So,
and I have another suggestion regarding the books because I'd love to sign them personally by name. So the first 5 people to join my mailing list at PamelaSamuelsYoung.com, join the mailing list, then email me and say, I'm joined. I'll hit you back and say you're one of the ones, and I will sign you to you, and then mail them off for you guys to pick up, so people just won't be randomly showing up. So Perry will tell me where to send them. So first 5 people to join my mailing list at PamelaSamuelsYoung.com. I'll join it, and then email me to say I joined, and then and how you want the book signed.
Okay. See, now where you gonna get that? I mean, what other What other talk show you can get something like that? An award-winning author telling you, "Hey, tell me how you want me to sign your book." Only on the 2-minute warning.
Only on the
Okay, all right. That's a good segue. David, any closing comment?
Well, let's let our guests close out, and I think that's a great segue to go ahead and close out the show.
My final thought is there's no such thing as child prostitution. They are sexually exploited children. We need to protect our children.
Great.
Absolutely. Listen, if we do not help ourselves, if we don't get our mental health right, if we don't heal that trauma that is leading, our children to have low self-esteem, etc., if we don't do something about that, if we don't educate ourselves, we don't have any hope. But I absolutely believe that because we have this, we have this venue, we have the West Side Gazette 2-minute warning, that we're going to do something about this, and we're going to utilize those things that we're learning here today. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you guys for the work that you do, all of you, Lynette, Perry, Bobby, David. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Pamela.
Okay.
And that's all I can say is thank you. Thank you for taking the time out of your schedules and sharing of yourself and the personal reflections. Best believe I'm going to come back and listen to this one again. But again, thank you so much, Pam and Lynette, for being our guests and sharing.
Absolutely.
I also want to thank you guys, and as well, tune in next week because we're going to continue this topic to the end of this month. So I'm really excited about closing this month out, giving more information about how we can put a stop to human trafficking.
Okay, great.
All right.
Human trafficking. How can we help and what can we do about it? As we end this segment on human trafficking, I want to pray for all those who have died, suffered, and bled from the pain and agony felt from loss and misery of all the lives torn apart by human trafficking. We are overcomers of one of the most horrific forms of human trafficking, and that was known as slavery. God is bringing us through it, and he'll take us through this. I do want to say thank you to our guests and our viewers and our listeners. And please, if there's anything that you or somebody you know has gone through and needs some help in addressing, please reach out to one of those numbers that was broadcast earlier where you can get help. Again, the mind of the John is a psychological something missing there. And I think that love is a most important building block to solving the issues where something is missing. So let's all try to love each other just a little bit more. And maybe, just maybe, we can love ourselves out of this dilemma. God bless you all. Thank you so very much. And please come back and join us next week as we close out Human Trafficking Month and doing our part to try to help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.